بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال اجعلني على خزائن الأرض إني حفيظ عليم وكذلك مكنا ليوسف في الأرض يتبوأ منها حيث يشاء نصيب برحمتنا من نشاء ولا نضيع أجر المحسنين صدق الله العظيم. Respected brothers, last week we mentioned that the king of Egypt, Walid bin Rayyan, called Yusuf والسلام, in his court, and then they had a discussion and he wanted to hear the interpretation of the dream directly from Yusuf والسلام. Yusuf والسلام, before interpreting the dream, told him that you have seen certain things in your dream that you have not disclosed, which I will disclose for you, which will make understanding the dream much more easier. The king was a bit astonished that these things and these details I have not mentioned to anybody. So how have you come across them? He knew that this was divinely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yusuf والسلام, explains the whole dream to him, that this is what you saw, X, Y, and Z. And then he also gives a complete interpretation of the dream. When the king hears the interpretation and what is going to come and the 7 years of famine and hardship, the king then asks the question that you have said this is a strategy and this is how we can survive through the 7 years of famine. Who will look after all this? It's such a great task, a major responsibility. Do you have anybody in your mind that will be able to overlook the whole process, that will be able to manage the whole manage and administer the whole process of this side when the famine comes? So Yusuf والسلام, rather than pointing towards anybody, rather than mentioning any names, he put himself forward. He said, "Ij'alni ala khazain al-ard." That ij'alni, appoint me, ala khazain al-ard, over the treasures of the land. Meaning, make me in charge of the finances and all the resources, the agriculture. Then he goes on to say, "Inni hafizun alim." Indeed, I am protective, trustworthy, and I am knowledgeable. I have the necessary skills for this post. Now the question that arises is that Yusuf والسلام, asked for a position, he asked for a post, he asked for a ministerial post, and this is contrary to akhlaq and the characteristics and the nobility and the nature of a Nabi. A Nabi does not usually strive for worldly positions, worldly posts, and also contrary to Nubuwwat. It is not a part of, it is not the status of a Nabi that he should turn towards these things. Instead, he should abstain from worldly posts. He should abstain from these things. So Mufassirin say that why did Yusuf والسلام, ask and seek this position? They say because when the king asked that this major process that needs to be taken care of, do you have anybody in mind? At that moment, Yusuf والسلام, could not see anybody capable of this. Throughout the king's courtiers and all the king's ministers and all his advisors, Yusuf والسلام, could not see anybody that was worthy of this, because the majority of them were disbelievers and the country was going to face a major crisis, a major calamity. The famine was going to come. So Yusuf والسلام, knew that if these people are not trustworthy, then they will fill their pockets, they will fill their families' pockets, they will be happy, they will have food on their table, on their dastakhan, but the general masses and the poor people, they will be left out and they will be the one that will be dying. So Yusuf والسلام, saw this, that these people are disbelievers, and when the crunch comes, this is where you see the reality of a person, that when the crunch comes, this is when their selfishness starts to come out. So Yusuf والسلام, realized that no, these people will not be able to administer and they will not be able to manage the issue properly Rather, people will end up dying. So he put himself forward. And he said that I will be able to do it. And secondly, he realized that those people in the cabinet, they were of the hierarchy. And these usually, when they hit these positions, they tend to forget about the poor. And they will not treat them equally. So Yusuf Islam did not see anybody in the cabinet who was worthy of this. So first of all, he put himself forward for the sake of the poor and the destitute. That if somebody from the cabinet becomes a minister in this time, then which are the poor people, they are going to bear the hardships. So he put himself forward. And then after he put himself forward, he mentioned two sifats and two qualities that he possesses. He said, Inni hafidun alim, that indeed I am protective and indeed I am very knowledgeable. I have knowledge about how to control the treasury, how to spend, how to give out, how to protect, how to preserve, and how to safeguard the treasury. So Yusuf Islam mentioned these two fundamental points for treasury. Any person wanting to be a minister of finance has to have these two things inside him. That number one, he is hafiz. These two are functional virtues that a finance minister should have. That number one, he is hafiz. Hafiz means that whoever assumes the position of a finance minister, he should be protective. He should be responsible for what is coming in. That whatever comes in the national treasury, this is the public funds. Whatever comes in, every penny should be accounted for. No penny should be wasted. No money should be gone here and there. Nothing should be wasted. Nobody should be given concession. And this is what we see nowadays, that people are given undue concession. Somebody is a peer of a certain political party. He's a donor of a political party. So they get concessions, business concessions. They get tax reliefs. This is not fair. Because when this happens, the poor people have to bear the brunt of it. So Yusuf said he has to be hafiz. All the revenue that has to come in the country has to be taken, no matter if it's your friend or your foe. No matter if it's your relative or an enemy. If he has to pay 10,000, he has to pay 10,000. You can't give him discount. You can't waive anything. And sadly to say, we see this in the times that we are living as well. That somebody is a minister of finance, somebody is a chancellor, and their family are waived off with hundreds and thousands of pounds of tax. And who has to pay off? When that tax money is not coming into a country, who ends up paying it? It's the poor. They have to pay on the heavy prices of food, heavy prices of fuel, heavy price of electricity, because there's an imbalance. The rich who have to pay the taxes or evading them, they are finding loopholes because they are in ministerial positions. They know how to evade them, they know how to avoid them. Which are the poor people, they don't know the loopholes. So they work day in, day out, and they have to pay this tax, that tax, this tax, and they have nothing left. So Yusuf salam put fundamentals that number one, he has to be hafiz. That no concession, no discounts, no evading, no avoiding, no waiving any public funds from anybody. Whoever assumes the office has to be very strict. That every penny that comes in has to be taken in. And then he said, Alim, that I am also knowledgeable. I also possess the knowledge of how to spend the money from the treasury. When the money comes in the treasury, one thing is to safeguard it. One thing is to protect it. I have that knowledge as well. I know how to bring it in. And number two, afterwards is spending. I know where to spend it. In which avenues to spend it. Should it be spent on these people? Should it be spent in that area? Should it be spent on this, on these faculties, on the health, on what issues? So Yusuf said that I also have this in mind as well. And this is from where we understand that if somebody is is the Minister of Treasury, but he has Hafiz inside him, he is in this aspect, he is safeguarding, he is protective, but he does have knowledge, then he can safeguard all the wealth, but when it comes to spending, he will spend in wrong directions. He will be spending in education when there's no need and people are dying. So at that time, you have to spend in health. So he'll be spending in the wrong avenues. He needs to spend money for other aspects, other avenues, and he's spending money. Or he is overspending. The bridge only needs to be spent 2 million on. He spent 10 million on it. So that means 8 million of the public trust has gone to waste. Or somebody comes in the treasury, minister of treasury, but he knows, he's got knowledge of where to spend it, but he does not know how to safeguard it. So he knows exactly where to spend it, but he has not safeguarded the money. So when he comes to spending, will he have any money to spend? So Yusuf ﷺ said this, that inni hafizun alim. So Yusuf ﷺ voiced his two main attributes. And ulama say from this, that if a person has some attributes inside him, and he needs to expose them for the benefit of other people, then this is absolutely jais. That a person says that, let me take this job, inshallah I am trustworthy, I will never steal money. Then we will not say that he is saying it out of takabbur or out of pride. No. If he is saying it because he knows that there are other people, that if they assume this post, then they might steal. Then to protect the money, he says that inshallah you will not find a penny missing from my calculations, give me this post. Then in that aspect we will say it is absolutely permissible for him to voice his qualities. And number two, Yusuf is asking for position. Generally speaking, to ask for a position is discouraged in deen. Rasulullah ﷺ, once he told Abdul Rahman ibn Samura that don't ask for a position, don't ask for a post, because la tu'til imara, la tas'al imara, don't ask for a position, because if you ask for a position, then number one, it is possible that you will not be able to fulfill the responsibilities, the requirements, so then you will become sinful. Or number two, if you ask for it, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help will be taken away from that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will move away from there. There will be no assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's side. So now you will have to execute the whole responsibilities on your own without the help of Allah, and this will become very exhausting for you. But if a post or a position comes your way without you asking for it, and there is no harm for you, there is no love for fame or love for wealth in there. Some people get together, the local people of the community get together, and they look at you and they say, okay, you become the chairman of the masjid, we need a person like you. You have the correct attributes, there's taqwa inside you. There is humility, humbleness inside you. You have the jazba of khidmat of makhluk inside you. You take the position of the chairmanship. If this person knows that there are other people in the area who, if they were to come and take chairmanship, then the whole institute will go upside down. There will become quarrels in the institute. Then this person, knowing that he does not have love for fame, he does not want this chairmanship, but for the sake and the betterment of the general public, then it becomes wajib on him to take that position. So that's why Mufassir said Yusuf ﷺ saw that all the people in the minister's court, in the king's court, there was somewhat corruption inside them, or they were not up to spec. So he knew, if I don't take this position, then if somebody else creeps in, then other people will be at problem. And number two is that Yusuf ﷺ was divinely instructed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you take the position of this minister of finance. And ulama say why? Because Yusuf ﷺ knew that the king has become very familiar with me, and he's become astonished with me. He likes me, he's seen my akhlaq, he's seen my qualities, and he is very inclined towards me, so he is definitely going to give me a ministerial post. But there's a chance he could give me a post which is just connected to the office work. So that means day in, day out, I will just be sat in the office. But Yusuf ﷺ had a greater objective. He was a Nabi. He had to propagate deen. He had to propagate Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he knew that I'm definitely going to be given a post. But rather than being given a post where I have to sit in the office, or I have to sit by the king and just advise him, I want a post where I am completely interacting with the public. I am completely interacting with all the general people. So when I'm interacting with them, and when the famine comes across, I will be interacting with the people of Egypt, and beyond the boundaries, I will be interacting with people from beyond Egypt. And this is where I can talk to them about Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is where I can talk to them about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when they will see my akhlaq, when they will see my way of life, when they will see my quality, and they will see my attributes, then automatically they will be inclined towards deen. So Yusuf ﷺ chose this ministerial position himself. Why? Mufassir say that he knew that he was going to get a post anyway. But if he was to given a post where he's just sat behind a desk or next to the king, then he will not be able to mix, and he will not be able to interact, and he will not be able to socialize with general people. Then he will not be able to fulfill his major objective of deen. So that's why he chose this position so that he can mix with the general people and he can propagate deen. And then going on from there, Mufassirin say that when Yusuf ﷺ completed his dialogue with the king was so amazed that this person is filled with so much wisdom, he's got so much knowledge, he knows the attributes that a person should have for this particular post. But the king, because he was not completely accustomed to Yusuf ﷺ, he had not seen him, he's just come out of jail, he's not lived with him. So straight away the king was also very clever. So a king did not give him the ministerial post straight away. Rather the king with great honor kept him as a guest in his palace. For 1 year he kept Yusuf ﷺ with him. And he saw Yusuf ﷺ, he talked with him, he saw his way of life, he saw his akhlaq. And as days went, he became more fond of Yusuf ﷺ. And Mufassirin say that after 1 year passed, he did not make Yusuf ﷺ the minister of finance. In fact, when that year nearly passed, during the duration of that year, the chief minister, Zuleika's husband, the chief minister, Qitfir his name was, he passed away. So when he passed away, there was a gap in the chief minister's position. Before he was a finance and agriculture minister. Now there was a gap in the chief minister's position. So when the minister passed away, the king, Walid bin Rayyan, straight away appointed Yusuf ﷺ as chief minister, and he handed him everything. He handed him everything. He said, you look after the whole country, you manage it. He became the practical king. Although Walid bin Rayyan was the customary king, he was the king with the crown, but the practical king was Yusuf ﷺ. And in the following ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. In this way, in this manner, we gave Yusuf ﷺ authority in the country. وَيَتَبَوُّ مِنْ حَيْثُ يَشَاءُ. He lived as he wanted. Yusuf ﷺ was the practical king now. And Mufassirin say that when the king Aziz Misr passed away, Zuleika became a widow. So Walid bin Rayyan, he got Zuleika married after Yusuf ﷺ. And when Yusuf ﷺ got married to Zuleika, he turned to her and he said, that is this not much more better than the option you wanted? You were inviting me and inciting me towards evil, wrong, zina, guna. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made a clear, open, permissible avenue for you. And then as time passed, Mufassirin say that Yusuf ﷺ saw that Zuleika's love for Yusuf ﷺ was somewhat declining. So Zuleika, as Yusuf ﷺ once asked, that what's happened? There was a time that you were mad over me, heads over heels for my love. And now I'm seeing a decline in this. She says, through your barakat, now I have the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in my heart. And when the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has encompassed my heart, now everything is for Allah's sake. That's why you have seen a decline in your love and the love of Allah has gone up. And this is the point I want to finish on. That when a person sacrifices something for Allah's sake, Allah will give you that or something better in return. So Yusuf ﷺ at that moment, Nabi, he left everything. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him Zuleika, and Zuleika got Yusuf, but in the permissible way. And this is possible. If you leave out something, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. If you leave something for Allah's sake, fearing Allah, Allah will give you something even better that you will not even realize. You will not even know. You are attracted to somebody, but for Allah's sake, you do not take any impermissible steps. Inshallah, you will see a day that either you will get that same person or you will get someone even better and you will be more happier. You are ready to buy a house, you don't have funds, you are inclined towards mortgage, haram. But you reserve and you submit yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command. And you control yourself. And you don't buy the house and you carry on living in rent for another 10 years. Inshallah, time will come that Allah will give you something even better because you sacrifice for Allah's sake. And we see in our Muhajirun, the people of Makkah, they left Makkah Mukarramah for the sake of Islam, for the sake of deen, for the sake of spreading deen. They left everything, their houses and their homes and their wives and everything they left. But a time came that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the wealth of the world. And the Muhajirin and the Ansar had so much wealth, but they had to sacrifice something. And there's a pious person in history by the name of Hazrat Ibrahim Adham Rahmatullahi. He was the king of Balakh, king of a whole country. And one night whilst he was sleeping, he heard some footsteps on his roof. So he called his gods and he summoned the people on the roof. And 2 people came. And he asked them, in the morning, they were brought to his court and he asked, what are you doing on my roof at night? So he said, we are looking for our camel. Our camel got lost, so we are looking for our camel on your roof. So Ibn Adam Rahmatullah says, be your proof, you're going to find your camel on my roof, on the palace roof. If you lost your camel, you will find it in the jungle. How on earth are you going to find it on the king's roof, palace's roof? So this was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving him a shock and calling towards deen. So these two people said, Hazrat, in that case, how are you going to find Allah on your soft bed? You are saying, how are you going to find our camel on your roof? How are you going to find Allah in this lavish life? But that was the turning point for Ibrahim Adham. And he realized, okay, I'm living a life of lavishness and I have to see Allah one day. So he left his kingdom and he went to the jungles. And bas zikr, shugal, Allah's itaat, farmabardari, Quran, namaz, nafal. A time came that the minister of Balak came to him and they said, okay, Hazrat, come back to Balak, the whole country is waiting for you. We need a king like you, there's nobody to run the country. So Ibrahim Rahmatullah said, I can't. Because, for a person to run a country, he needs to be in a correct state of mind. Right now, I have so much pressure and so much on my tension on my head. He said, what's the tension? We'll try to help you. He said, I have come across the ayat, Fariqun fil Jannah wa Fariqun fil Sa'ir. That one group of people will go in Jannah, one group of people will go in Jahannam, in the blazing fire. Tell me which group I am in. If you tell me, I will come and sit on the throne again. So one of the ministers said, Hazrat, I am in the same scenario now. This has also intrigued me. So the ministers left and they went back. Ibrahim ibn Balak Rahmatullah alayhi stayed in this jungle for so many years. Then they came again. And they said, Hazrat, come back and take kingdom. He said, no, I don't want to come now. I've fallen in the love of Allah and this is everything for me. He said, no, there's a kingdom. Balak is waiting for you. So Ibrahim Rahmatullah, in those days, the people used to have a little bit of DIY themselves, accessories. So he had a needle tucked in his sleeve. So he took the needle out and there was a small river in front. And he threw the needle in the river. When he threw the needle in the river, he literally went down in the river. Then he instructed that, Ya Samak, oh fish, bring my needle back. So all these fish came, so many fish, and they put their face up from the water. And they all had golden needles in their mouth. Ibrahim Rahmatullah said, no, I want my needle, not the golden ones. All of them went down, and one fish came up with his needle. Ibrahim Adam Rahmatullah turned to the minister and he said, I have sacrificed the kingdom of Balak and I have got this kingdom now. Why do you want to come to your kingdom for? So youngsters, respected brothers, the time you are living in, so many challenges. Whether you go college, university, youngsters, they are faced with challenges, whether it's in terms of women, drugs, alcohol, so many different challenges, guna. If you preserve yourself, safeguard yourself, then inshallah you will see a day that Allah will definitely show in this world. He will show you something better and something much more better and happier. And when you see this, you will realize, Alhamdulillah, I sacrificed that and this is the naqad. What Allah has left for me and reserved for me in Jannah is different. This is cash reward for me. And our Akabi said there's a story in the kitabs that there was a person who is a student, Talibi Ilm. And in them days when a person used to go for seeking knowledge, they would hear that there's a certain Buzrug in Samarkand, but a certain Muhaddith in Basra, in Kufa. So they would travel miles from Spain, from other parts of the country, from Russia, from Iran. Jabs said they would travel to that place. Now they would have no food there, no shelter. So the general nizam, the general system was that they would stay the night in the masjid. So they would come in the masjid, they stay the night, and in the local somebody would feed them, and in the mornings they would go to the Sheikh Buzrug's, Muhaddithi's masjid, and they would listen to hadith, they would write it and they would come back. So there was this Talib and we were staying in a masjid. And one day it so happened that some travelers were going past, and whilst they were traveling, one of the girls, young girls that were traveling in the caravan, she got lost. So she was in the wild on her own. So she went to the local town there, village, and she got some space in the masjid. She came in the masjid and there was this student sat at the front. And he had a candle and he was studying. So she came in and she asked that, can I take some refuge in the masjid if you allow me? So he said, okay, go at the back and go to sleep. You are traveling and I got lost. So she went to sleep at the back and he's doing his mutala at the front. And when there's one girl and one boy, and Shaitan is always in the middle. So Shaitan is continuously putting whispers in his ears. Okay, go on, do what you have to do. Go on, do what you have to do. So anyway, this girl was trying to sleep, she couldn't sleep, and she was watching this person that he's studying, and every now and then he's reading his kitab and he puts his finger on the candle, on the flame. Studying and puts his finger on the flame. Subah ho gayi, when the morning happened, the travelers, they came looking in the village one after the other, and they came to the village and they saw their daughter. So he said, are you okay? And the way she said that, yes, this boy was in the masjid and he allowed me in the masjid and he didn't do anything to me. But do me a favor, ask that, why was he putting his finger in the fire? So the father of the girl came and asked the boy. First he thanked him that Jazakallah for looking after our daughter and giving her some refuge and space and security. But our daughter is asking that, why were you putting your finger in the flame for? He said, no, it's okay, leave it, it's okay, leave it. So when they kept asking, he said, I was in the masjid and shaitan is not far away. So I kept getting this whisper. So every time I got the whisper, I put my finger and I was telling myself that, oh you, Banda, if you can't save yourself from this fire of the candle, if you can't even put your finger in the fire for 10 seconds, how are you going to resist the fire of Jahannam? And for the whole night I done this. So the father saw this taqwa. He went to his daughter outside and he asked that, if you want, we will marry you too, because we will not find anyone better in this. So they came and they asked, propose and shadi. Last night she was haram for him, he done taqwa, today she becomes, the same person becomes halal for him. So my respected brothers, young friends, we live through very challenging times. But we need to exert a little bit of effort. And as we see in Ramadan, your stamina, taqwa goes up. There will be times where you want to do guna, but exert that effort. And inshallah, you will put that guna away and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you something better in return. Allah will give you, somebody is getting enjoyment in drugs and he puts himself, he ties himself, he controls himself. Inshallah, time will come that he will get the same, in fact, much more enjoyment in namaz. And whenever you look back, you will think, what was I doing there? So, then it's also Imam Ghazali mentions that one day, Hazrat Yusuf came out of his palace and he's like the king now, like the practical king. He had his entourage. When she saw him, she said, Subhana man ja'ala al-abida mulukan bi ittiba'ihim. That, Subhanallah, look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's divine way of doing things. That a person who was a slave yesterday has become the king through what? Through taqwa. He exercised taqwa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him up. She saw him and she said this, Subhana man ja'ala al-abida mulukan bi ittiba'ihim, or some say because of his good deeds. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to understand and also give us the tawfiq to abstain from what is guna, what is wrong, and increase our spirituality through a month of Ramadan. We are in the second week now, nearly 2 weeks of finishing. We've got 2 weeks left. This is a course, this is a place to increase our taqwa. So the more we put effort, inshallah, the stronger our stamina will become. After Ramadan, the easier, the stronger your stamina becomes now, the easier it will become to resist gunas after Ramadan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the correct understanding and tawfiq. Subhanallah, subhanallah, wa bihamdihi, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka.